Welcome to another edition of the Eye on Life podcast. I am your host, as always, Brian Boyer. It is go time, and from what I've been told before we came on for the show here, anything goes today. So this should be a very, very interesting show. Like us, share us, follow us on social media. We're all over the place, and we are joined today by Taz. Am I supposed to call you Taz, or is that just the logo?
That's just the logo.
Okay, all right. So we're gonna say Terry Ann Zander, but I like Taz. Taz has there's a little bite to it. There's a little friskiness to it. There's a little edge to it. I like the Taz thing. There you go. See, I like that. And we're gonna talk about some humor today. We're gonna talk about comedy and humor. Things have been so serious lately in life and society. Last week, even the past 2 weeks, we had a great show with my buddy Don Napoleon. We talked about race and society, and he had some humorous anecdotes, but obviously that's not a humorous topic overall. So Terry, thanks so much for joining us on the Eye on Life podcast. I'm thrilled to have you here.
I'm thrilled to be here.
It's an honor. And before we get started on the conversation, there are a couple things. First off, again, you're listening to the Eye on Life podcast. And the other thing I want to say, and I don't think I've said this in a while, we have plenty of content for the show. Content is never an issue. That being said, as the listeners and viewers, if you ever have ideas of things that you want to see on the show, topics, guests, please let me know. This is an engaging show. This is not about me. This is not about being my show. This is a podcast for the people. So if you have ideas or thoughts, I'm at brian@eyeonlifepodcast.com. You can reach me there. You can reach me on social media. I want to hear from you. If you want to be on the show, you think you offer something unique and exciting about daily life, let's chat. I would love to have you on. But if I don't hear from anyone, hopefully the show will still go on, but I would love to hear from people. I also have some new listeners this week, and I want to give a special shout out to those people. And I'm actually excited, Terry, because it's two of my favorite places. We've had some downloads over the past week from Delray Beach, Florida.
Wow.
Which I love Delray.
Delray in the house.
I don't want to stereotype, but I hope they're less than 90. They're not 90 or above. I mean, if they are, that's great. I don't discriminate on the show. The older, the better. But
after today, that might change.
It might change. Hopefully, they can at least hear the show. So, but Delray is one of my favorite places on earth. And then another place that I love, Los Angeles. And I'm hoping that maybe Charlie Sheen might be listening to the show. People that watch or listen to the show know that I love Charlie Sheen. Not necessarily as a role model, but he's cleaned up his act, and I do love the guy. I think he's funny. I think he's a great actor. I think he has cleaned up his act. I think that's a good thing. So I'm a big fan of Charlie Sheen. I'm not saying that it's Charlie Sheen that's listening to the show. Anybody who's in LA that might be listening, I'm thrilled that you're listening. But in those markets and other markets, please pass along if you like the show. Share it with your friends and or even people that you hate. Share it with them. In fact, if you don't like the show, that's even more of a reason to share it with people that you hate. Right?
Everything's game. We're all in.
We're all in, right? So, and then I want to get to a more serious note before we get started. The show sponsor is Must NY. A good friend of mine and his wife from high school, Chris Bosser, and they're selling COVID masks, and they're entrepreneurs. MustNY.com. They're based out in Western New York. Again, MustNY.com. They took a leap of faith in sponsoring the show, which I really appreciate. And they're entrepreneurs, so support small business. I know they're members of the local chambers out in Western New York. Great people, great guy, great family, and it's really serious. I mean, I don't know. I don't think I mentioned this to you, Terry, but both my parents actually just recovered from COVID.
Yeah, you did say that. Yeah.
So it did hit home for me. Fortunately, they made it through pretty well. But I know there are a lot of people that are not, that are suffering losses of their families, and families are being torn apart because of this horrible thing. So wear the masks. It decreases the chances that what they're saying, it doesn't hurt. So mustny.com, great holiday gifts, and you can actually have them custom made. In fact, for the second week in a row now, I've forgotten to bring the masks that Chris made for me for the Eye on Life podcast. So I'm clearly a terrible business partner.
Well, maybe I actually could get some done when we do comedy shows. They get some Taz comedy. I'm going to have to hook up. MustNY.com. I'll check them out.
MustNY.com. They're awesome. So let's do that. So thanks for your support on that. And again, support Chris and Monica. They're great people, and great business people as well. Terry, I want to ask you a question. Do you like game shows? Are you a fan of game shows?
It depends. It depends. I don't win any money. I do like to watch the people and how excited they get. I mean, I think I'm of the age group where The Price is Right was real popular.
Yes.
And watching those crazy people come running down the aisles with their costumes and how to get attention. That was always fun. That's Price is Right was one of my favorites growing up anyway.
I watch that too, actually. Isn't it? I think Drew Carey is Drew Carey hosting that now?
I think he is. I think it's a daytime show. Yeah.
I think it is.
Yeah.
Bob Barker was awesome.
Oh, I know. I just love the little microphone. I love the little microphone. The way he grasped the microphone just really close to the edge, and he just had such command.
Well, the reason why I bring that up on a more cerebral note than
Oh no, we're going cerebral. It's too. Well,
we are going cerebral. And I just want to recognize and honor the and it is a legacy of Alex Trebek, who passed away recently.
Yes.
You talk about household names, and I don't, even whether you love game shows or you don't love game shows, or you watch Jeopardy or you didn't watch it, I think most people know the name. And I'm always impressed by people, and we're going to talk about comedy as an art form, but when people have a craft and they do it so incredibly well that even if it's not technically an art form, they turn it evolves into an art form.
Right. They are the cream of the crop. They've reached a pinnacle that no one else can get to.
And Alex Trebek did, and I'm not saying I was ever the biggest fan, but I did watch it, over the years.
Of course. We watched Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy, or Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune. They kind of went together. They
did go together, and I have to say the only negative about Alex Trebek was after watching that show, I never felt really like the smartest person in the room.
I was never the smartest person. Never. That's why I do comedy.
Well, because we can laugh at ourselves, but I did just want a special memoriam recognition to Alex Trebek as an icon, and I didn't really know too much about him. Obviously, I saw some of the tributes, but he seemed like he was a pretty good guy.
Yep.
He came across his persona and his image on the show, I thought was very positive. He seemed like a nice guy. I love how he sort of dug at people sometimes, but in a fun way, not in a mean, vindictive way.
No, not at all. Very professional.
Very professional. And he's one of those guys where if you meet them, you would hope that he has that same personality. And I think he did. I think from what I've read, at least, I had never met the guy, but it seemed like he was a genuine, nice person, even when the cameras weren't running.
I've heard that, and I would agree. And yeah. Salute to Alex. To Alex.
So a special tribute and thoughts and prayers to his family and everything. But anyway, let's move on. So we're talking comedy today, and I have to say, Terry Ann, excuse me, you might hopefully have the whitest teeth that we've ever had on the show, because by day you do. That's a good. Is that a smile or a grimace? A lot of people.
That's like my horse. Horse face.
A lot of people do grimace when they're on the show. I will say that. But that's. Sorry. I'm going to take a snapshot of that, and we're going to put that on Facebook. Oh, nice. I want to see how we freeze. You know when they say, like, hopefully your face doesn't freeze that way?
Yeah, right.
But you must have white teeth, because I know you by day you do business, and I don't know, maybe by day or by night you do comedy, but you do have business. But I want to find out how you sort of acclimate yourself and make that transition from working with the Choosy Dental app, which I want to give you a chance to talk about briefly here.
Okay.
Hence the white smile and the straight teeth, not horse teeth at all. And then also how you became interested in comedy as, a hobby and, a passion. So give us a brief background on yourself, and then I want to jump into some very serious questions here today.
Okay. Well, let's see. In comedy, they call that the setup. And I'm like,
was that a meatball setup? I think it's a meatball. If it's an easy one, I think it's a meatball or a softball.
Yeah, I don't get all hung up on that. Yeah. I'm just sticking with the basic setup.
Sounds good.
Setup. So you just lobbed me something that I need to take off with. Yeah, I do work by day, and I need to pay the bills, and so that's why you have a real job. There are people out there right now suffering who have made comedy their life. And comedy has been backburnered by everybody because of COVID. But I'm fortunate in that I have other skill sets as well. Comedy was, a tangential. I can't even say the word. It's
That's
too
tough.
early. Tangential.
Say it 5 times fast now.
Yeah, no, not
No,
happening.
one's
Not
enough.
happening. Not happening before the hour. Yeah, so I had things I needed to fall back on, and so work, regular work, a 9 to 5 job, working for a variety of entities over the years. I have my glasses. I look like a little bit of a librarian, right? Do I look like no?
Well,
And
well, let me just say, I don't mean to interrupt you, but if you're talking about the see now here's a problem that we have. I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off here.
it's okay.
And I don't use the term PTSD loosely. I don't, because I know it's a very serious thing. But I have been yelled at many times over the years by librarians. So I have bad memories now.
Oh, I'm sorry to bring it up.
Because I have that loud kind of voice. And it was always, even though I was just talking normally, like in
Use
school,
your inside voice.
I have no inside voice. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And I would always get reprimanded in school.
As would I. We were
as you would
probably
too.
in the same class.
So now I feel like as we go on here, at some point, because I'm speaking so loudly and emphatically about things, that you're going to yell at me for shh.
I would never do that.
Do you hate being shushed, by the way?
I do hate being shushed.
Is that one of the most obnoxious
things? Now I do it to my kids. I'm shushing them all the time. Use your inside voice. The place isn't on fire. Stop talking so loudly.
Well, you are trying to work, but I find, and I've done it to my kids, but I find that to be the most patronizing thing, the shush. And here's the thing, and I want to get, see, we digress on the show, you know that.
Kainte la boca.
But the shush is, I find it to be so obnoxious. It's so dismissive. And I think that there are different kinds of shushing. There might be some that are, like, if you say shh, that's a little more soothing, like,
yes,
like the baby's crying.
I was just gonna say, yes, you're just lulling a baby to sleep.
But then there's the one that's like the it's like the shh, like that, like it's like the it almost sounds like a motor, like you're trying to, like, you start up the shush motor.
You've studied this, haven't you?
Well, I don't think there are studies on it, which is there should be. But I find it to be so dismissive. I find it to be so rude. And I don't know, like, I guess there are times where it's appropriate if you're in a movie, if you're watching a movie, and we don't go to the movies anymore, but shh, that's appropriate. But it just seems to be, it's so obnoxious.
Well, my kids have shushed
me.
We could go with the shut the fuck up.
We could do, I don't know. I think
is that dismissive? Is that dismissive?
I would actually rather have somebody say that to me.
Okay.
Than shush.
I'm glad we know where we stand.
Because there's a little bit more. In fact, I feel like you're about to tell me that on this rant. But I feel like there's a little bit more effort there. There's a little more passion.
Was I allowed to say that, by the way?
Well, you did, so we're good now. I would rather have somebody curse and give me the finger than shush me. Don't shush me.
Okay.
You can. I'm not saying
no,
you.
I'm not gonna shush you.
And the worst, and then the other thing with the shush is shh. When you, oh, that's a bad one too, right? Right, shush. Or if you put your hand, like a barrier, shh.
Zip it.
Anyway, I'm going to zip it now. I want to let you get back to what you were saying about but anyway, let's the whole concept of shushing needs to go away.
How do you feel?
Okay, sorry.
I'm feel a little bit better? Do you feel better?
Actually, I do. I feel pretty good.
You got my heart rate up.
I feel good now. But anyway, I want to get back to you.
Holy shh.
You can just tell me to shut the hell up at any point during the show.
It's all good. It's all good. Hey, it's
your show. I interrupted you. Go ahead. Sorry.
Eye on life. You know what? Sometimes we all have triggers. You mentioned PTSD. We all have triggers. Apparently, I found yours.
And you're my librarian, so you'll be my librarian for the day.
All I said was librarian.
It doesn't take much, Terry Ann. Trust me.
Apparently not. So I work during the day, and at night I do comedy. There you have it.
That's a great brevity. Brevity is key these days. I want to ask you a question, because you brought something up that I thought was really interesting. And you said that comedy for some people, has taken a little bit of a hiatus because of everything that's going on right now.
Yeah.
Which I get. That makes sense, because obviously, I don't know what's going on right now. I don't think comedy clubs are necessarily operating. Maybe they are with the capacity.
Depends where you are.
Depends on where you are in the country, right? We have a lot of people listening from all over, But I guess my question is, that being said, I almost feel like comedy right now and humor is more important maybe than it's ever been.
Oh, clearly, the answer, they talk about essential workers,
Yeah.
comedy, and the arts in general, music, all those things that bring people together, all those things that provide soothing and an escape and opportunities to gather, are backburnered, like we talked about, but yeah, they are the essential workers. I'm not downplaying the healthcare
Of course.
folks, or the those that provide support in various mental health and physical health and all those folks, because clearly, and even law enforcement and first aiders and first responders, those are obviously, without a doubt. But there's a lot of people that I think we've realized, there's a lot of industries that we've come to realize are more important than ever, and yet they are pushed aside to make way for, liquor stores. Liquor stores are important. We all need to, soften the blow, if you will. But comedy, comedy is a great form of laughter, is best medicine kind of stuff. And when you take that away, you're really, there's no outlet for people, and people are by themselves, and we need to be able to do these things together. And some things came out of it too, okay, so you can't go to a comedy club. There are clubs in New York that you're performing on rooftops, or you're in Central Park and you've got an opportunity to perform outside, but it's getting cold, right? And comedians aren't afraid to put on a coat and perform. We need that. We need the energy of others, and we need to hone our craft. But Zoom shows are cropping up all over the place. People are doing sketch comedy. There's all kinds of ways to still bring humor to the masses, and to hone your craft. Podcasts obviously are a great way to reach lots of people and share funny stories. There are a lot of comedy podcasts and ways for people to engage. But I'm of the opinion that comedians and musicians are essential workers.
No, I think that's a good point. And again, we're not diminishing the all the
Nope.
healthcare workers and first
No,
responders
not at
and
all.
law
Not at
enforcement.
all.
But I do understand what you're saying. And I guess it sounds like also what you're saying is that, like business, right? Even though we're in a challenging time here where, live venues are limited, and I imagine comedy tours are limited, but there is a pivot in the way that we can still find humor.
Oh yeah.
You can find it online. You can find it through podcasts. You can find it even just maybe having a little bit more humor in your home, I guess, right? And not keeping things a little bit lighter.
Oh yeah, you have to. I would have, I made a joke when my when this school year started. I have an eighth grader. I think we have a similar situation.
We do.
And my eighth grader, you take that picture on the front step when school starts, or out in the driveway with the backpack and all their stuff. And so I got my kid, out of the bed, put on a collared shirt, the backpack. He was barefoot. Stepped out on the front steps, and unlike prior years, I actually got into the photograph. I asked my husband to snap a photo, and I was sitting on the bottom step with a bottle of vodka because I knew I was in for a bumpy ride.
It is.
And thankfully, I thought by Thanksgiving I'd be at Betty Ford. That has not happened. I'm close, but yeah, you got to find the humor in it, because all he did was turn around and walk back up the stairs and into the house, because he's been learning virtually by choice, which was a huge mistake.
No, the virtual piece of schooling is terrible.
Yeah. So that's a whole other thing. But here I needed to find something funny. I needed to find the funny in that. Because if he's going to be in the other room, like right now, he's supposed to be in math class. He's not in math class right now. He's still in bed.
That makes me feel a little bit better.
Yeah, at least I know where he is.
At least you know where he is. And I feel like I feel like the whole virtual learning is literally setting us up as parents to fail. I really feel that it is.
Yeah.
Lose situation.
It's awful. We just had a conference. We had a conference every day this week with a teacher on Zoom, and we heard the same thing. We should have just hit play, to the conversation. Well, he's done this and he shows up and we can only see this much of him. And he's usually late. He stays for a minute or two and then he goes away and he's missing about half of his assignment. So the reason why he has a 36 average is because he's not doing the work.
Right.
Is there a problem at home we should know about?
Right.
It's like, and I walked out of the conference the other day. I actually walked out of the conference, went into the other room and said, I can't do this. I'm
I have my conferences this week. So
I'm out. Well, I give up. I'll stick to comedy.
And you do have to find the light in that situation. But again, I feel like I do feel like it's a no-win situation for the kids. It's a no-win situation for the parents. Some, and a lot of kids, especially at that age, right? And even as an adult, and I have another rant here first in just a second.
I knew it was coming.
You knew it was coming, but I want to get your take on the rant as well. Okay. It's not about me. The virtual learning piece, I really do feel for the kids because obviously the whole social piece is limited, right? But I personally, one of my biggest pet peeves, and I have a lot of them. I'm already turning into that curmudgeon-y old man, right? 45 years old. But I hate it when you ask somebody a question and they don't want to answer it. So they say, oh, just go check it out on YouTube. I don't learn that way.
No.
I remember, I won't mention the nonprofit organization that I was working for. This nonprofit, its idea of launching a new, I think it was I forgot what it was. I think it was a new, some form of new technology. I think it might have been a customer service platform. And they said, well, if you don't, we're not really going to train you because we don't have time to train you, but you can find all the information you need on YouTube. Okay. Do your job and train. So I sort of feel like, and I really do feel like, and I give teachers, my parents,
props.
They were both teachers.
Yep.
What the teachers are going through. And I don't want to sit here and have a sob story as a parent. The teachers are the ones who are making this come to life. I think they're doing an amazing job.
Yes, they are. Props
in a horrible situation.
Yep.
But don't tell me to go to YouTube. I'm not the teachers. If you want me to learn something, and I'm not saying the teachers are doing that, but my point in saying that is that it's sometimes tough to get on a screen like this and learn. At least for me.
Every child is different, right? Everybody learns differently. You have the audible learners and you have the visual learners and you have the hand over hand types that need, the direction and you're not going to get that. You tell my kid to do anything on the internet, I'm sorry, he's playing Discord and whatever else he's doing in there.
Well, right, exactly.
He's got his Chromebook set up in front of his monitor, and he's got his keyboard for his PC, and he's multitasking. He's got the microphone on. He's got headsets on. He's playing a game while he's sitting in class.
Right, exactly. Well,
I mean, come on, who's kidding who?
And they have all the technology. They have the phone.
Yeah.
And I think everybody. Again, when I say this, I know it's a condition. I'm not making light of it. But a lot of kids have ADD, right? And me too. I really feel like when I was younger, if I had, yeah, well, and they all do. I mean, to an extent, they all do. I know some have it more extreme than others. And again, I'm not making light of that. I know kids, their medications and everything for that.
No, I get it. I get it.
So I'm not making light of it. But every kid is going to be, and it might not be ADD, it might just be distraction. But I think it's impossible to have a kid and maybe take them out of their bedroom, I guess. I don't know. You put them anywhere. There could be a bird outside or a leaf that's blowing by that's more exciting than what they're
The dog is barking. There's something I need to eat. I need to, it's just nonstop.
So I guess my question to you then, but going back to the whole comedy thing.
Oh, thanks.
I know, because
it's depressing. I'm going down the rabbit hole.
Well, if you don't laugh, you'll cry, right? It's one of those things.
Exactly.
But I feel like comedy, I don't want to say making light of serious things, but I feel like people these days
take themselves too seriously.
Yes.
Come on.
I mean, laugh a little bit. Laugh at yourself. Laugh at others. As I said, we talked about this in a serious context in my last couple of shows, talking about race and society. We just had the election, obviously.
Yeah.
Some people think the election is still going on for some people. I know.
Right.
But but there's so many things that are serious going on. I mean, I woke up this morning. I had to get up really early to get my kids to school, and I'm watching CNN, and it really was depressing. And it wasn't like there was anything sensationalized. They were talking about coronavirus. I think in Utah, was spiking in Utah. Then they were talking about they were talking to a nurse in Chicago who was talking about what they do as patients are actually dying in the hospital. You know, they hold their hands, and it was just very hard to get my day going. I mean, I feel very fortunate in my life, but I know that there are people that are going through this. And so I understand it's harder. It's sometimes easier said than done to be humorous about things or to feel, light about things. But I feel like it's more important today than ever to not take things so seriously.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I'm concerned about the minks in Denmark. I think that's where they are. The minks that contracted COVID. I'm concerned about them.
You mean minks as far as there's an animal?
The animals, I'm just, the minks. There's like, minks, M-I-N-K-S.
They have COVID now.
Yes. I don't know how that happened, but they have mink farms. And I was reading, I'm kind of amazed at this. They're killing lots of these minks because there's this spread of COVID among minks. And all I can say about the whole thing is I'm glad I have my jacket, my mink coat, because there's
you have a mink coat?
There's going to be a spike in prices. It's in a
you
closet.
You have a mink jacket.
It's in a closet.
Don't tell. Let's not get.
Yeah. Well, you have a disclaimer. You have a disclaimer on the show, do you not?
Which disclaimer? No, yeah. There's always a disclaimer. Yes, my legal
that
team.
Your opinions. My opinions are the only ones that matter, and the rest of us.
My guests are not necessarily. I'm worried now. I'm going to walk outside my house wearing a cotton shirt, and somebody's going to throw that.
Yeah, no. You're not going to have that. But this is this was before PETA existed. This is going back. It was handed down generation and generation. But this is where the minks have COVID.
I didn't realize that.
And I'm just trying to find funny in that goodness. I'm just glad I've got my jacket. Because I don't want to pay more just because all the minks died. And it's terrible. It's terrible. Let's change the subject. I'm sorry.
Does that mean that you could you have a COVID jacket then, technically?
It was pre-COVID.
But I'm saying now.
It's warm. It's warm.
The whole minks thing is I have to be honest with you.
You gotta go look it up.
Is it only Denmark? It's only Denmark.
I want to. Is it Denmark? I don't know where it is. It's somewhere over in Europe. I think it is Denmark. I don't know why Denmark, but they have mink farms. They actually farm minks. Like we have farms with cows.
Right.
They have cows. They have farms with minks.
So.
And I don't know. Here's the question. I don't know how the COVID got from Farmer Bob. I don't know what Farmer Bob is doing out of wherever he is.
Well, I know that the cows are sometimes whatever.
Well, they had cloning right back in the day. I don't know. That was sheep.
That was an ethical thing, though. Wasn't there an ethical thing with the cloning of sheep?
I don't know. All I can tell you is somehow, I'm not a scientist.
Right.
Let's be clear. Minks in the mink farms, they've had thousands of them are dying, and they're trying to kill them off to prevent further spread. I'm not making this up.
Somebody will be offended by that.
I understand that, and I sympathize.
You're making light of the minks. And
I
don't know if I can have that on the show, honestly. I have to be honest.
You're going to have to edit this whole part out.
You might have to. This might be the first one that we actually just cut. No, we might cut off the whole show but that really, I really did not know that.
I didn't know that there was person to animal transference of COVID.
I don't want to even know about that, but
that's scary, right?
How did we get into this? Because we were talking about not taking things so seriously, and now we're talking about minks.
Sorry, I wasn't taking it seriously. I was
minks, human relationships.
Yeah.
Anyway, cows, farm animals, whatever.
You've heard of, what do they call those people? She's a, what's the word? I have to look it up.
You're not supposed to say those people. That's un-PC. Actually, this is a good question, actually, because.
What do they call? A woman, not a sphinx? No,
definitely not a sphinx.
Isn't she a What's the word?
I think they do. Well, in the movie Austin Powers, he mentions about shagging like a minx.
Okay, so
Vixen?
there
Is
is
Vixen?
no, not a Vic. Anyway, I'll look it up later. We'll put it in the show notes. Go ahead, proceed.
Make sure you get your masks at mustny.com.
Mustny.com.
Let me. I have a question that I plan to ask you, and I think I already know the answer.
Minkless masks.
Minkless. I think they're cotton. Actually, they're breathable too. I have one. You can
Which
breathe
is very
through it.
important. You got to be able to breathe.
Unless you don't like someone, then get them one that you don't want them to breathe. It's fine. But here's my question. So we talked. So here's my question, because I'm getting a
Is
certain
there a
style
question,
from
Brian?
you. What's that?
Is there a question?
There is somewhere in there, but here's my question. There is a certain style of comedy that comedians have, and I'm thinking that yours might be a little on the edgier side. Am I wrong? Am I right? Like, do you consider yourself to have an edgy style around comedy? Because that's going to lead me to my next question.
So should I say yes?
Only if it's true.
I'm more observational.
Yes.
And I'm more of a storyteller.
Got it.
Okay. But what I observe and what I say in comedy kind of goes to the edgy. All right. So how I interpret what I see, or how I choose to deliver that material, sometimes can go edgy. But a lot of what we do now, places don't allow us to be as edgy as we'd like to be.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, as far as the edgy. And when you say that, like, what do you mean exactly? Like, so for example, before we started the show today, you said, is it an anything goes? Can I say anything? And I basically said yes. I mean, obviously there are certain lines, but I guess that's my question. I want to throw that back to you now.
Mm-hmm.
Are there lines when it comes to comedy, especially now the political environment is very, very intense. We talk about being sensitive.
Yeah.
You could look at someone the wrong way and they'll scream at you for voting for either Biden or Trump, whichever one, right? And there's COVID and health related, items right now that are, and they're very serious topics. But when it comes to comedy, and we've seen people get nailed for this, they've said something that was offensive. I remember during the Me Too, I think it's still going on, but Me Too movement, there have been some, comedians who've gotten nailed for that, making light of certain things. Is there a line that comedians should not cross when they are online or at a show or whatnot? Or is it just, I say what's on my mind, that if I get reprimanded for it later, then I'll just suffer those consequences?
It depends. It depends. If you're a professional and you're being paid and you're being sought after for the kind of comedy that you do, there's an expectation, right? So people like, let's say, Louis Black,
right,
Amy Schumer, Jerry Seinfeld. Like, and they're different types of comedians, right? Different ways that so what you're getting with Jerry Seinfeld, what you're getting with Louis Black, and you know what you're getting with Amy Schumer. So having said that, that's at the highest level, right? Those are professional, national touring, international, names. When it comes to like the comedy circuit, the regional comedians or even the touring comedians, in the US and abroad, they have a following and they have a specific type of audience. And their audiences know their type of comedy. There's guys like Jim Breuer. Let's say Jim Breuer. Jim Breuer can be absolutely hysterical and never be off color, never be whatever. And there are people like that. And you've got George Carlin, you've got Eddie. So, and those are at the highest level. When you're the average Joe doing comedy, or I'll call myself an amateur. Okay. I'm an amateur or a hobbyist. I'm not a hobbyist. I'm an amateur.
Right.
But like, I can't get away with that because I'm not those people. I have a following. There are people who expect a certain kind of comedy that I deliver. But clubs and places that you perform, whether you're doing it as a fundraiser or you're doing it for an entity, they'll come right out and tell you. I'll give you an example. We just did a show, a virtual show for a company. I will not name the company. And I was one of the comedians on the show that was put together as a fundraiser for, I won't say the organization they were raising money for. And what we did was we did like an hour-long show. We put together little clips of everyone, and we sent it to them as the product. And they were going to host it online at their company, which was a very large company. And they were going to use it to raise money for this organization. Fast forward. We sent it. We edited out all the stuff that would have been too edgy, and it was still too edgy. Okay? There is such a thing called blue comedy, which is as raunchy and as down to whatever as you can get. And there are people who do blue comedy. I'm not blue comedy. You know, I will say something that's off color. I will hint at a lot of things, but never cross the line. You know, people, there are those that get away with it, but it's expected that they will do that. Political humor is in that thing. I don't want to do political humor. I don't follow politics. I don't do politics. I'm allergic to politics. I don't want to know anything about it. And then there are people who go so much down the foul language line, and that's all they are. But then there are guys like Mitch Hedberg and other people who are just, you know, they're just awesome. And they hint at a lot of things. They say a lot of things. They make you think about a lot of things, but they don't cross the line.
It seems like it's one of those things about knowing your audience as well. Because,
well, clearly,
I mean,
clearly.
And I guess, let me ask you this, because I like a lot of different kinds of humor.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved George Carlin. He was a little raunchy, and he was.
I've seen George Carlin. I love George Carlin. I love George Carlin.
He's more cerebral, I think, and I've talked about
absolutely.
this. I've talked about this on a past show. He's cerebral. He was raunchy to a point, but he was also very smart. I thought,
very smart,
and which was awesome. And I do love Seinfeld, and I loved like Robin Williams.
Robin Williams it was, you know, the guy, what an icon. I love that guy.
But I could go and I could listen to Jerry Seinfeld one night and then go hear I'm trying to think of somebody who's really raunchy. Like when Andrew Dice Clay was around, right?
Andrew Dice Clay, saw him live, loved him. I mean,
they're hilarious.
He needed the money. She needed the money.
Exactly. And I thought that was funny. But do you find that can people cross over to different comedians? In other words, I can go and I can listen to a show where every other word is the F-bomb.
Right.
And I can enjoy that if it's used in the right way. Not just
exactly.
And then I can go to see Seinfeld, who I think is obviously, you know, the top of the top. And he doesn't use profanity, and he's just as funny. I could enjoy both shows.
Yeah.
But again, you're talking about, I guarantee you the audience of the first night with the guy dropping the F-bomb is probably different than the Seinfeld audience or the Jay Leno audience. So, but do you find that when it comes to the audience, can people cross over, or is it usually, well, that's the blue collar humor or blue humor, and then this is the more like sophisticated humor? Not to sound elitist or anything, but is there crossover, or is it sort of like people just enjoy what they enjoy?
I think people enjoy what they enjoy. You know, I don't think I like a little bit of everything too. I can go to I went one year, like 2 years ago, I think, or 3 years ago, I went every month to a different comedy show, and I saw Carol Burnett, Trevor Noah, Kathleen Madigan, Paula Poundstone, and all of them are completely different styles and way of doing things. And then I could go and watch a friend comedian tape an album and whatever. So you can appreciate and go to everybody's stuff. But you're going to seek out what you identify with or are compelled to listen to. Just like music, right? I have different music tastes. 1 minute I could be listening to Andre Bocelli, and then the next minute I could be listening to Charlie Daniels Band. Not often, mind you. Or, you know, I could be listening to Bon Jovi and Eric Clapton. You know, it's
Mix.
Full range, all over the place, you know, whatever. So same thing, I think, with comedy. And comedians are not going to change to draw a different audience. They have to be true to themselves.
Right.
So if you're true to yourselves, you will have the people that identify with you and enjoy your type of humor will come to your shows. And, you know, they're not gonna seek out somebody just for the sake of expanding their horizons necessarily. They're going to go where they feel the most welcome and identify where they can identify.
I feel like in regular normal life, which does sometimes feel like a comedy show or a bad dream sometimes.
Yeah.
But there are some people that they're funny. They're just funny, and then there are other people who are just not funny, I guess. And I guess that's my question as far as comedians go. What do you find funny, I guess? Because you just mentioned a few that, a few, and you're giving me great hashtags here, by the way, so thanks for that. But you talk about some of these comedians that you've seen. How is it that I could go to, say, a Seinfeld show and be laughing for an hour and a half straight, but the person I'm with could sit there and be falling asleep? I'm just using Seinfeld as an example.
Yeah.
What makes someone funny to someone versus completely not funny, boring? How does that?
It's all about experiences, right? It's what they can relate to. So comedy is about taking I'll call it a universal subject and putting your own perception, spin, interpretation on it, and then delivering it. And so the goal of comedy is to really find a way to share that observation or perception with a larger audience, right? And not everybody's wired the same way. Everybody thinks differently or sees things differently. So, I've gone to shows where I'm rolling and my husband is not, and he's clearly a very boring guy, which is why we make a fabulous couple, because he just kind of hangs back and I'm
Does he come to your shows though and laugh?
He's been to, in all the years, he's come to 2.
Did he laugh?
Maybe 3. One of them he actually did. The first time, I remember the first show I did, we got in the car afterwards and I said, "So, how'd I do?" And he said, "Well," and that was it. And then the second one he came to, he was like, "Oh, that was really funny. That was very funny." And anytime something happens in my life that I find funny, or I just kind of like, and I'll start to tell the story. So one of my favorites was my now 13-year-old walked in on my husband and I having sex. And
this is a real story.
This is a true story.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And we always do this big prep when we have sex, right? So the door gets locked and shut. And, I have to have a towel because I'm a neat person. I don't like to have a mess. And it's like all this preparation for what? A minute and a half? Anyway, so.
Don't tell your husband. He won't laugh at that one.
No, it doesn't matter. So all of a sudden, and we were doing the traditional, he's on top, right? So all of a sudden there's a knock on the door, and then the door gets pushed open and my son walks in, and my husband looks over his shoulder at the door. I start laughing hysterically because I wasn't on top. So I didn't feel very self-conscious. I was buried undercover. So I go downstairs. It's a Sunday morning to make breakfast. And my kid comes downstairs. And he was, I think, 9 at the time. And he says, "Mom, what, you shouldn't be doing that." And I'm like, "What? We were having a conversation." He goes, "With your clothes off?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So fine. I go into the kitchen. I'm making breakfast. My son comes in again. He says, "Mom," he said, "Dad's 59 years old. Should he be doing that?"
Oh, wow. That a fly on the wall in that conversation.
So my husband comes in, I tell him the story. And about a week later, I said to him, "That's going to be in my comedy." He says, "Of course it is."
So you've actually told that story on stage?
Yes. Because I've, of course, told it a little bit differently, but the gist of the story. And I've embellished the story. But the point is, he knows that our life is fair game. It's fair game. Because that's truth to me, and that's what's funny to me, and how and why. So when I tell the story, I can bring people along in what's funny to me, because it's happened to everybody. It's happened to everybody, whether you were the looker or the lookee. Does that make sense? Or the,
It,
someone's
it
either walked
does.
in on you or you've walked in on somebody else. It's happened to everybody. We just don't talk about it.
Well, let me ask you this question. I have two questions for you based on that. We are going to start to wind down here because I know you have to get going. But two questions I have on that. Is it worse to be the one walking in on it or the one to be caught doing it?
I don't know.
What's
The jury's
worse?
still out, but we'll talk to
We'll talk to your,
my kid's therapist in a few years. And
I was going to say, we'll talk to your son in 20 years and see what he says.
Yeah. It could be the reason why he's failing school. It could very well be the reason. I don't know.
Did you tell counselors what happened? Because then there should be some kind of.
There's almost dispensation, as they say in the Catholic Church. You've been dispensed.
But how does that work though? Because I remember when.
Well, he gets on top, and then somebody. Oh, but here's the funniest.
Wait, no,
part.
you have to let me finish the sentence. I wasn't asking about that.
No, but I need to tell you. I need to tell you the funniest part.
I do know how it happens.
Wait, no. Here's the funniest part. My husband's an engineer.
Oh.
He was more concerned about how my son got in the locked door. So he gets up butt naked, walks across the room, and he's fiddling with the fucking lock for the next 5 minutes.
Right.
That's what he was concerned about.
Well, I mean, clearly
in this room. Anyway, sorry.
Either your son has the super strength of Superman, or the lock company needs a severe there needs to be something, a lawsuit.
There's not a testimonial attached to that company, but I can tell you that the locks were changed immediately thereafter.
I can imagine.
There's a happy ending to this story.
Well, I'm not going to go there with that.
No. The happy, not that happy ending. The happy ending. We're getting our happy endings confused. A happy ending is also a dessert at Friendly's. It's one of my personal favorites.
Friendly's going bankrupt, I heard.
I know, isn't that? My God.
I'm not even kidding. That is tragic.
No more fribbles and fishamajigs. What's going on?
I grew up at that place. Speaking of, when we talked about Alex Trebek, that was another place.
Yep,
I know. Go to Friendly's and then go home and watch Jeopardy.
I had my first root beer float and threw up in my grandfather's car after my first trip to Friendly's.
What was in the root beer? What was in the?
I think it was just I think I had eaten too many clam strips and what have you. And
that's your first problem. You don't. The one thing you stay away from at Friendly's is clam strips. Stick with the burgers and the melts.
When I was a kid, they don't make patty melts anymore. They took patty melts off the menu, and I think that's their demise. That's all I'm saying. That's it. I'm not talking.
That's why it's going bankrupt. But I do want to ask you a question about the whole that everything is fair game. Clearly, and based on this interview, we know everything is fair game. But I want to ask you. I love Howard Stern. I'm a big fan of Howard Stern. And did you see the movie Private Parts?
No, I can't say that I did.
Great movie, but it was interesting because it was and he was in the movie obviously, and it seemed like it was fairly accurate, but it was basically a biography on his life and how he made it big. But I remember one of the big things, and obviously Howard Stern is a much different kind of humor. He makes this conversation look completely benign and all that. But anyway, but there were certain things that he said on the air and in the movie at least, and I think that this was part of his real life too, was that he would bring those real personal items into it. I mean, his wife had a miscarriage, and in the movie he went on and he kind of made light of that, which I think would be probably crossing the line when we talk about crossing the line. But how does that work? I mean, do comedians do that? And is it supposed to be the understanding of their families that, hey, when something like this happens that I maybe don't want to leave the house, 100 people are going to hear it at the nightclub the next week? Is that just something that you have to accept as a family member, or is that like, are there like a lot of divorces taking place because comedians can't keep their mouths shut?
I don't know the answer to that. I think there's an understanding, like Jim Gaffigan talks a lot about his wife.
He does, yeah.
Family, and people talk about their families. Families are fair game. There is so much content in with your family because it's true. It's your life and how you see things. And you know what? If we didn't have families, we wouldn't have comedy. I joke about being adopted. I joke about not looking like my siblings and growing up in a house and trying to find my mother and, like everything. And my dad, my mom, she's no longer with us, but I remember when my mom first heard my comedy, she said, and I would name nuns. I was raised in an orphanage for the first several months of my life. And my mom, and I made names up of nuns. I don't know the names of the nuns, but I made up their names. And my mom's like, Terry Ann, those aren't the names of the nuns at the orphanage. And my dad's like poking her going, she made the names up. It's supposed to be comedy. So like, you get it. You know, there are people who take it seriously and their family and whatever, and it's all fair game. And I check in with my dad every now and again. Like I make jokes about, growing up. I don't know. You're younger than me. I won't say by how much. I didn't know how old you were until you said it earlier in the show. But yeah, it's all good.
Another
I
thing,
won't say my age, but
it's very taboo. You can't ask somebody their age. We've
yeah,
talked about
I'm
that
older.
before.
I'm older than you. Let's put it that way. And back when I was raised, we used to, and I make a joke about, I reminisce about the old days when you could use an implement to discipline your child. It's against the law now, and
Right.
just that's my PSA for today. But I tell stories about growing up and all those things, and it's all my experience. And I check in every now and again with my dad, and I say, "Hey, Dad, are you okay with, and does that bother you?" He goes, I know, it's part of the thing. So I think families and accept it and understand it. I'm not going to cross the line and say anything that's uh, too off color. And even if it is, um, I'm letting people know it's okay to talk about it, because, if I'm okay with the fact that I had a belt used on me a lot when I was a kid because I was a smart mouth and I didn't listen and I was disrespectful and all those things. If I'm okay with it, then it's okay to be funny about it. It's okay to make light of it, because we're all products of that kind of thing, I don't know if that answered your question, but
It does. I don't think there's any data, however you say it, right? But I bet you, I would almost guarantee that there's more strife at the Thanksgiving dinner table than there is amongst comedians making fun of their families on stage.
oh, there clearly is.
just
There
have a
clearly
feeling.
is. Yep. And I'm looking. Unfortunately, we've always had Thanksgiving. It's just been the four of us. This year will be the three of us because my son is off in the Marines in a foreign land, which I will not disclose.
But
Yeah.
thank you for that, and for him.
Yeah,
for serving.
I'm a Marine mom. I'm a mom of a Marine. And so it'll just be the three of us. And even though it's the three of us, I still reminisce about stories or tell stories about, my cousin. I won't say his name because I'm sure he would have a hard time with it, but we still tell stories about the cousin who, would sit underneath the table and what was going on underneath there, and all kinds of conversations. We used to say, I'll never forget this. So coming from a big Italian family sitting around the table, why do we not talk to so-and-so anymore? And all the aunts and uncles are sitting around going, I don't know. Why do we not talk to them? And I'm like, if you guys don't remember why you don't talk to cousin whatever, like, why don't you pick up the freaking phone and call? Like, isn't it past time? Like, you can't get over whatever it is that you're angry about. You don't even know what you're angry about. It's someone else's issue. It was your parents' issue or your parents' issue. You're still carrying around this baggage? Pick up the fucking phone. Call them.
I think that probably happens a lot in life where people
Yeah.
you forget why you're angry at somebody.
So here's the message. Here's the message for this Thanksgiving. Pick up the phone and call those that you love, especially because you're not going to see them this year.
Well, I think that's actually fascinating that in a year where the conversations, I'm sure, would be very spicy at the dinner table, the dinners are going to be very limited. I mean, can you imagine, that family that has the 20 people at the table and the varying opinions of health and wellness and politics and what that would bring? So it might actually be a good thing that maybe families are social distancing this year, because it could be there could be some turkey thrown, some gravy thrown, your way.
Massive food fights this year.
Yeah, seriously. So I want to wrap up here. I do want to. Where can people find out more information on you, Terry Ann?
Okay. Yeah.
I want to give people that opportunity.
Yeah, I have a couple different websites. We do murder mysteries, we do comedy shows, fundraisers. So you can check me out at tazcomedy.com. I also have a podcast, which is available on everywhere that you can actually listen to a podcast. I do a podcast that drops every 2 weeks. I also have a blog, but the Some Kind of Comedian .com. You can find it there, and you can find, again, the podcast anywhere. But I also post a blog every other week about my life and how I see things and some of these stories on somekindofcomedian.com. So tazcomedy.com, somekindofcomedian.com. We're also available on Facebook in the same names.
So, and I would encourage people to check that out. And if you are thinking about maybe a hobby or a career or becoming an amateur, you know, again, this is a tough time going on right now with everything, but it's also an opportunity.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
we're not going out as much. So, you know, start your podcast, start your comedy, start your blog, you know.
Yeah, you could take a class. You could take a class online. That's how people, you know, when somebody asked me where, you know, when someone heard that I was interested in comedy and I said, you know, what do I do? What do I do? How do I get started? And they said, take a class, read a book. And there are classes online. I participate in a comedy writing group, almostcomedy.com or jokezoom.com. There are people who are teaching online, you know, so take this opportunity to explore and find your funny and help it grow and help you get through all this stuff that we're dealing with.
Yeah. And laugh at yourself too. I mean, it's
all day, every day.
All day, every day. It's too short not to. Terry Ann Zander, I want to thank you so much.
Oh, Brian,
for joining us on the Eye on Life podcast. Again, I want to make sure, just to remind everyone, if you have story ideas, podcast ideas, let me know. I'd love to have you on. Brian at eyeonlifepodcast.com. Also check us out, Facebook, Instagram as well. And again, thank you to my newest listeners in Delray Beach, Florida, which I guarantee it's nicer there today than it is here in Connecticut, and also Los Angeles, California. And I also want to thank again, get those masks, wear the masks, please. I am preaching. Mustny.com. Get your masks. They're inexpensive and they're so well made. Show sponsor, I really appreciate it. I'm really not just saying that because they're the show sponsor. I'm really not. I would say it anyway.
Get the masks, people.
Get the masks. But Terry Ann, thanks so much for joining us.
Brian. Thank you.
And thanks to everyone for listening, watching, and thanks for keeping an eye on life.